Hello and welcome into the Cubs on Deck podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Greg Huss, and today I'm joined by Bryan Smith. Bryan, you saw the intro there. We're literally talking about basically the entire system today. We've got a whole loaded up episode.
Yeah, I mean, last time we talked, we really hit just those top few guys for a long time. So it's nice that we're going to get a little more in the weeds. It's a little more our style, I think.
Yeah. We're recording today. Today is Monday the 14th. And today we had no minor league baseball. We had no major league baseball. It's a weird day. It's a weird day for baseball. But we got to see a pretty dang good major league team pretty recently, right?
Yeah, this team is starting to just be so fun to watch on an everyday basis. The way they allow a run on the mound, and then the next half inning that the team seems to always find a way to score a run or three. It's really cool, and it'll be exciting to see the ways that they can use the farm system to help them down the stretch here, even if in really small ways.
I tweeted out the other day that for the first time in a few years, I have been going back on days where I'm not able to watch any baseball in the evenings or in the afternoon or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going back and I'm looking at the major league box scores before the minor league box scores, which is it had been the other way around. I'd been going through all four affiliates and some of the complex league teams, and then going to the major league team at the end of the night. But I've been reversed because the major league team is brought interest back to me. So that's been fun.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for, right? That's the whole. We're into the minor leagues because we're hoping that it makes our major league experience better. So when it's actually working out that way, it's pretty nice.
Exactly. So
I got to point out to you, because you didn't notice it before the show when we were talking. I was doing some back to school purging this weekend, and out of the depths of my closet found my 20-year-old West Tennessee Diamond Jacks hat, the Cubs AA affiliate from 20 years ago. So I was very stoked to find that, bring back the memories of the David Kelton era.
That's actually incredible, dude. Oh my God. The Diamond Jacks hat. I was not expecting that reference today. We get into the weeds on some stuff, but I was not expecting a Diamond Jacks reference today on the podcast.
I know, it was quite the era. It was like we were worried back then about having too many third basemen to break the Ron Santo prospect jinx.
It's like,
and then of course none of them worked out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you can never have too many shortstops, but you can never have too many third basemen, which isn't really a saying, but yeah, I guess it was back then.
Eric Hinsky, David Kelton, Ryan Grip, Brendan Harris. Oh man.
Dude, I should have, on that intro where I'm showing off I typically show the names of the guys we're talking about. I should have just listed off those guys. That would have been incredible.
That's how we really bring in the new listeners.
Dude, there's going to be some real sickos like you and me listening to this episode. They're like, oh, yes, I needed that. I needed the David Kelton reference today. I needed it.
Exactly.
All right, man. So let's talk some prospects now. We got some updates recently over on some of the national publications. So that's what we're going to dig into the entire episode here today. We got new top 100s and top 30s and all that good stuff from Baseball America and from MLB Pipeline. I know as we're recording this, actually, as you guys are listening to this on Tuesday, the Just Baseball Top 100 will drop. And you guys, I don't want to say for sure because this episode might drop before, you guys might be listening before the list comes out, but you will be very happy about an Owen Casey ranking on that list. So go check that out at Just Baseball. We won't be talking about that. We're going to start off this episode talking about the top 100s and the guys who made that. And then the bulk of this episode is going to be talking about the top 30s and kind of comparing MLB Pipeline's top 30 to Baseball America's top 30 and seeing where the big discrepancies are in terms of the players ranked on each of those lists. So let's dig into the top 100s first. We'll cover Pipeline, who included 5 different Cubs prospects in their update, which is tied for second most in all of baseball, I believe, in terms of the number of top 100 guys they have. I'll run through these rankings and then kick them to you for your kind of initial thoughts on this. PCA is ranked 12th in this update. Cade Horton is all the way up to top 30 prospect in all of baseball, which is pretty damn elite if you ask me. Owen Casey is ranked on MLB Pipelines. They get the ranking at number 68 as of right now. El Jaguar, Kevin Alcantara is at 76, and Ben Brown does crack the list in the top 100 at number 91. What are your just like right off the bat thoughts on these rankings?
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting that it's Owen Casey's, highest national rating yet. Something that, we've been begging for a couple months. And, I know our friend at Marquee, Lance Brozdowski, has been bugging Jim Callis behind the scenes in the Marquee TV studios like crazy to give Owen some love, and it worked here. And that's really exciting. Also, we're like really glad that Ben Brown's still hanging on to the back of that list. I think it'd be easy to sort of overreact to a month where he probably wasn't feeling right physically while he was having some of his first control problems in a year and a half. And so for them to sort of just keep an eye on the bigger picture with him and to keep him on the list is encouraging.
Yeah, the thing that stands out for me is PCA at 12, because I know a lot of people were really upset about seeing him drop out of the top 10, which he was top 10 prior to this update because of graduations, and basically just kept sliding up and sliding up and sliding up. He dropped down to 12, but I think that's honestly, I'm not too upset about it. I think I view that more as we saw the addition of Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens into the top 10. I think Junior Caminaro got added to the top 10, and he was like an absolute stud in the first half of the season. So like I don't view that PCA drop as a drop really. It's just kind of like he was temporarily slotted in at what, like he was up to
7, I think.
7. Yeah. So what's the difference between 12 and 8 and 7? Not a ton really. PCA is the same player that we thought he was 1 month ago prior to these being updated.
And, he'll probably be 7th or 8th this offseason when they do it as well, between a couple graduations that'll happen. And the fact that he's just crushing it at AAA in the last 10 days is going to help too. So, whether the number's 7, 12, 13, whatever it may be, Pete's one of those guys and in that conversation. And I think as we talk about the rankings today, it's just good to remember that like specific numbers, getting too hung up on those, that's probably a waste of energy. I think it's more when guys are in a completely different tier than you expect is when you kind of got to look at it with a more I don't know, inspective eye.
Yeah, if Pete was at like, if he was dropped down to 30 or 40, it's like, oh, like what happened there? We'll get to Cade, who is ranked 30 on this in just a minute. I want to talk about Kevin Alcantara because he's at number 76 here, and it's good to see him remaining on top 100s here. Because I know that he had the rough start of the season. People overreacted. He kind of got added back to a few different lists. And then he got injured. Now he's back in South Bend. Good to see him at number 76 here because I think he's a freak of nature.
Yeah, I mean, it was so surprising that these national outlets overreacted in the way they did, because so much of what, like, I know the way that I learned to think about prospects, and I'm sure you too, were, places like this reminding us like, hey, see the forest through the trees. It's a little slump. It's a bad month. And then, the guy essentially had a bad 3 weeks, and everyone's dropping him off the list when he's as talented as he is. It's strange. It doesn't suit those services. So I'm glad that at least one of them has sort of, reversed course and taken it back to where he was before the season.
Yeah, I feel like I've been trained over the years. Inadvertently, I've been trained to not overreact to a few week stretch or even like half of a season stretch. Like that's what I've been trained to do.
Yep.
And so like that's why I was so upset, and I know that other people were as well. Where like I'm almost like I'm to a fault too conservative in terms of raising a guy up a list or dropping a guy down a list. Like I'll be the first to admit that. But I think that it was just kind of insane to see that, honestly. So while we won't talk about Cade here because I do want to go through. There's only 3 guys that made Baseball America's list in the top 100. It is PCA at 13, so basically the same ranking. Cade Horton is in there at 18, which is crazy. And then Matt Shaw cracks the Baseball America top 100 at number 90, which is awesome. So between these two lists, there are 6 different guys as top 100 prospects in the Cubs system. Cade Horton at 18 is like that's I mean 30 is elite territory. 18 like that's that next tier up.
Yeah, I mean that 18 ranking honestly was sort of the first time that made me start to think like 2024 is on the table with Cade. Like, how aggressive is 2024 going to be? If they're thinking of him as a top 15 in baseball prospect, then, maybe we need to start thinking about the fact that is this a guy who could like break camp in a bullpen next year to sort of like learn the major leagues through that path a little bit. And I had mentioned, I think in our last episode, like he was a guy who I could see in summer of 2024, but the Baseball America list had me think like, oh my gosh, maybe it's even higher than that. Like how aggressive is everyone thinking about him? And am I behind a little bit? And I kind of think I am.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, there's only so many people that listen to the show, so we're not throwing out. We don't have to. We can throw out whatever hot takes we want. Uh, Give a percentage as to what you think the likelihood is that we see Cade break camp in Chicago next year.
Probably like 5%.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. Unfortunately, I wanted a little spicier take. That's where I was at. I was hoping for you to say like 20 or something. I don't know.
But I will say I think the odds that he's in Chicago by the trade deadline is like 66%, like something
Yeah,
pretty high,
yeah.
75%. So that's pretty remarkable, and that's not something we expected when he got that low A assignment out of camp.
I believe that I had to go back and check, but I believe on both of these Pipeline and Baseball America lists that Cade is the third ranked right-handed pitching prospect in all of baseball. I think in one he's behind Grace. Is Grayson still eligible? And then Gavin Williams maybe. There's a couple other guys, but he's a third ranked right-handed pitching prospect in baseball, which is like, dude, if you would have told me that at the draft last year, I would have lost my mind, man. I would have lost it. It would have been crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's he was a guy to help set up the next pick too. So when you get like total proper top 10 value with an underslot pick, I mean that's just a scouting department doing its job right there.
And then Matt Shaw, number 90.
Yeah.
That's fun too. I mean, I've talked about it on this show the past couple episodes. Like, you're not expecting the 13th overall pick to slot in at number 90 in all of baseball that quickly when he's a college draft pick and he's at slot and he's all that good stuff, So to see Matt Shaw in there of the Cubs elite type prospects, that's awesome.
Yeah, and Matt, is coming off just an awesome week with the South Bend Cubs.
Yeah.
Making you wonder if when the Tennessee Smokies make the playoffs, does he get the bump up there to get some experience? I kind of think if I had to guess today, I think he would make that he's going to be on the Arizona Fall League team, which is not something I expected, not something the Cubs often would ever consider with a first round pick. But I think he's that talented. I think it really is a league that sort of slots in well with where he is developmentally. So like, why not? Let's have some fun and let's get him in the infield there, and James Triantos trying this outfield thing in the Arizona Fall League would be fun too. That's my current hope for the Mesa Solar Sox.
Yeah, I had Norm on Twitter at 63 run Norm DM me and ask what the likelihood that we see Matt Shaw up in Double A Tennessee this year.
Yeah.
And I put it at 65%. If we're throwing
Okay.
out percentages here, I think that there's that likelihood we'd see him up in Tennessee. It's really just like, I don't think it's anything that we can see. Whether he gets that bump up to Double A, I think that's entirely internal, and it's because he can keep crushing the ball, and they continue to leave him down at South Bend. He can come back down to earth from where he's at now, and he can get bumped up to Double A Tennessee. Like, I think it's that decision is based on entirely something that we have no idea about.
Yeah, I think the one, like I kind of mentioned, the one thing that could tip the scales is just wanting that playoff experience. So if Tennessee makes it and South Bend doesn't, it's a nice way to continue a guy's season, especially like Matt Shaw is probably too talented to go to Cubs instructs and really sort of be participating at like a equal playing level as the other guys that are going to be there. So you'd kind of be wasting something by having him head to Arizona too early, especially when he could go to Double A and have a real experience there. So yeah, it's something to hope for. I'd probably put it at 50%. So we're in a similar ballpark there.
Anything else you want to hit on with these 100s before we move on to the 30s?
I mean, they need a couple more names, I think. I'm hoping this offseason we see another one or two of them. But we'll talk about those guys, I think, when we start going through the individual rankings. And I don't know, it's just exciting it's exciting to be able to argue for 7 Cubs in the top 100 again. It was a couple years there of just really like finding pride that the system was getting deeper and deeper, but constantly saying it does need more at the top. It does need more at the top. And we've definitely turned over the page now where, I feel like it's plenty good at the top. If anything, it's almost now needing the depth replenished a little bit. But
I completely agree with that. I was looking at the other day. I was looking at my pitching prospect rankings, and I was thinking that it could use a little bit of depth, but we won't get into that. Let's get into the top 30s. What I am not going to do is run through all 30 rankings of both Pipeline and Baseball America. I'm not doing that. Todd Johnson, fellow co-founder of Northside Bound, gave me the idea this week to do a little bit of overrated, underrated on the show here. And we're going to take that and kind of spin it around a little bit. And what we've done here is taken each of the Pipeline and Baseball America top 30 lists and identified, I think it's 16 total guys, 14, 16 total guys they have the most discrepancies, right? Like that Baseball America is way higher on, or MLB Pipeline is way higher on, whatever it is. We're going to go through those guys, and you and I, Bryan, we're going to kind of select which one we think is more correct, which ranking we think is more right, whether it's the Baseball America low or high, or MLB Pipeline low or high. Did I explain that right?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Okay. And I mean, I would just point out that, this is one list from each of those services. There's one right now that I like better than the other, but that's not to say that, in 12 months, I'm going to like the other one better than the other one. So it's just a moment in time that we're picking from, but it's good podcast episode fodder at the very least.
And I think that, I mean, you and I know as well as anyone that these rankings were very much so a snapshot in time, that they're probably like, if they're going to go and rank them right now compared to a week ago, they might be different. These are just ever evolving. My notes app is just always constantly tinkered with. So you're right. This is just a snapshot in time. We'll take it for how it is. Like I said, if you guys want to go check out the full list, go to MLB Pipeline, go to Baseball America, check these out, please. But the way I'm going to run through these is we're going to start at the guys that are most different in the two lists and then work our way to most similar. But we're not going to go like PCA and Cade are both 1 and 2 on both lists. We're not going to talk about those guys. We talk about them plenty. We're going to start with the guys that are not ranked on one list, but ranked on the other. And so we'll start with Brody McCullough is our first guy here. He is ranked number 30. He's ranked last on MLB Pipeline, and he is not ranked on Baseball America. So who's to say Brody might be number 31? This might be a weird exception. But Brody not ranked on Baseball America, 30 on Pipeline. Which one do you think is correct?
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that we're starting here because I believe I made a list the other day, or actually it was closer to the trade deadline, and I sent it to some people that donated to Brett Taylor's Bleacher Nation blogathon. And if I remember correctly, I think that I had Brody McCullough 30th as well. So credit to the overlap with MLB Pipeline there. I think it's
credit to you is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. Brody, now up in South Bend, has looked a lot more comfortable there in his last 2 starts, looking totally like he belongs at that level. A guy I know that has impressed you with like his misses being really small this year. Overwhelmed low A hitters with his breaking stuff. He's got really good feel for spin. And then he's just kind of got a little funky delivery that helps him get some deception, I think, and a big, tall, strong guy, but he releases it from a pretty low angle. So his fastball has a lot of life up in the zone. I think he belongs there. I mean, if Baseball America has him 32, 33, even 37, it's nothing that I would particularly argue with, but a guy that I think has the case to be as high as like 25 or so.
I'll come in with a little bit of a hot take right away, since this is a prospect. This is a guy ranked 30th. That isn't. It's kind of a weirder situation. I'd listen to an argument. I don't know that I would say it straight up right now, but I'd listen to an argument that Brody McCullough is the 5th or 6th best arm in the system.
Okay.
Behind the Cade, Ben Brown, Jordan Wicks, Jackson Ferris quartet there.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'd listen to Brody McCullough there. Obviously, there's other guys. I think Cole Franklin. We see the relievers and Luke Little and Daniel Palencia. Michael Arias is obviously jumped up list and stuff like that. But I listen to an argument that Brody McCullough is 5th behind that quartet of guys. So I'm going to side with MLB Pipeline on this. I'm going to say the higher ranking is more appropriate for Brody here.
Yep.
All right. So actually that was it as far as the pipeline ranked, Baseball America not ranked. We're going to flip over to the Baseball America side.
No, there were two more, 16 and 17.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Good call. All the way up yeah, you're right. I missed them because they're so high up. All the way up at 16 for MLB Pipeline is Drew Gray, not ranked on Baseball America. That's a pretty big discrepancy there. What are your thoughts? Do you side with the higher ranking or the lower ranking for Drew Gray?
This is a tough one. I will definitely say I think the Cubs would agree more with the Pipeline list that he's a top 20 prospect even in their system. I probably am closer to Pipeline and probably low 20s for me. Drew's coming off a rough outing a couple days ago where he didn't get out of the first inning. Just one of those things that we've often seen happen with A-ball pitchers, where the Cubs just pitch count them when they get to a certain number of pitches in an inning. It's one of those years, kind of like Cole Franklin had last year, where you miss a year with injury and you come back and you're showing a ton of positives, but you also have just no feel for the baseball. And like out of nowhere come where like one inning it looks really good, and then the next inning just can't spot a fastball. And I've noticed that with Drew a couple times this year. I'm excited for what happens after another offseason of work, just cleaning some stuff up, getting more comfortable, just throwing all the time and getting further removed from his Tommy John. He has the talent to be a top 15 guy in the system. I just don't think he's there yet. So I'm not really taking either side here super strongly, but just leaning Pipeline.
I'll lean Baseball America, ranking him outside the top 30. And again, I don't feel super bad. I think part of that is because there's such the big discrepancy here. Like it's 16 or nothing. And like that's kind of wild. If either one would have been like in the 20s, I probably would have sided with them. It's tough, right? Because he's obviously still working his way back, where he was out injured. Well, he was drafted. He was out injured. Like he's getting his first taste of full season like pro baseball. And so like those bouts of just losing it or just not really having it that day, or those are going to come. So it's tough to say like, oh, I don't believe in him, because that's not really the case. But I think that it might be just too soon for me to feel comfortable enough to rank him like at 16 or something that high. It's just kind of a big wait and see. It's how I feel about most prospects when they're high school draft picks or when they're international free agent signings, stuff like that, where it's like, let's wait and see. Let's see him prove a little bit of something, not anything for example, like Jefferson Rojas, which we'll get into in a little bit. Like Jefferson Rojas, like I just needed to see him a little bit. I just needed to see him do it a little bit in full season ball before I was like, all right, I'm on board. But I just haven't seen that with Drew yet. So soon enough, hopefully, I'm going to side with the lower ranking of Drew Gray there. Speaking of international free agent signings that I don't feel comfortable ranking, we're going to do that now. Derniche Valdez was ranked number 17 on Pipeline and not ranked on Baseball America, which feels about right. Like that feels both of their styles, right? To rank a top international free agent signing that high for Pipeline and not at all for Baseball America is like so on brand. It's incredible. I don't know. I don't know where I land with this one. I'll kick it to you first, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. I'm going to agree with Baseball America here. And, I think the reason that I would lean that way is Valdez is having a nice year in the Dominican Summer League, showing more power than I expected that he'd be able to show this early. But if you have him up at 17 and then you don't have another DSL player on the list, then I think you're saying that he's on like an entirely different tier than someone like Angel Cepeda, who's also having a really nice year, also a 7-figure bonus guy playing up the middle. And I don't think we have enough information to say he's on that whole different tier yet. I'm sure that Jim and Jonathan have, really well sourced info from there. And so it excites me that he's that high, but I would be a lot more cautious, especially because, we saw this with Christian Hernandez when he was in the DSL. Sometimes you'll see that Cubs prospects tend to get a little boost that when they play the other DSL Cubs team, they have awesome games. And if you look at their numbers when they don't play like the other Cubs squad, they're not as great. I actually think Valdez is having one of those seasons too. I believe 2 of his 3 best games are against the other Cubs team there. So I don't know. That's just a little bit of context that I want to add in there and that I just have noticed over the years. But yeah, I like to be conservative with this player type, and I'm going to go Baseball America.
That's one of the deeper cuts that you've had on the show, I think. Like referencing the fact, like digging into the splits against the DSL2 team, like
Yeah.
that's incredible. That's incredible stuff. You only get that on the Cubs on Deck podcast.
Yeah, and that's just 5 stars of Cubs Farm. Like that's, when you're just living in those box scores every night, that's what you get.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would rather rank like Drew Gray, right? I'd rather be on the conservative side, like that we tried to be with Christian Hernandez as well as we could, and it just didn't work out that way. Like let's hold off. Let's be patient before we like start ranking Derniche in the top 20 prospects. I'd side with Baseball America on this one as well. All right. The juxtaposition here, dude. Like it's incredible. Going from Drew Gray and Derniche Valdez to the guys that Baseball America ranked that MLB Pipeline did not. We're gonna go start. We have Jared Young and Darius Hill. We'll start off with Jared Young, who Baseball America has ranked 28th, and MLB Pipeline has ranked not at all. Jared Young is like just such a weird, like he's not really a prospect. like he's made 2 different stints up in Chicago. Technically, he still has like rookie status, right? Like he's not exhausted that rookie eligibility. So by that measure, he is a prospect. He's also significantly older. I don't even know how old. 29, right? Is he like 29 years old at this point? 28.
Yeah, 28, I think.
Yeah. So just like not really a prospect. So I don't know. I think that I'll lead off with this one. I think I'm gonna go. I'll side with Baseball America. I'll do it. I'll do it. I don't think I agree with. I don't agree with it. I wouldn't have Jared Young ranked top 30, but for the purposes of like what they're looking at, right? What Baseball America is looking at, they're saying he has already made his MLB debut. He's already proven that he can hit AAA pitching. Like that's already there. Is Jared Young going to be a starter in Chicago? Like absolutely not. He's not. But I get what they're trying to get at. Again, I wouldn't rank him top 30. So like I'm not siding with Baseball America from that perspective, but I am if I'm digging into the minds of the people who made this list. I get where they're coming from. I just disagree, but I'll side with them for that purpose.
I will take the other side.
Does that make sense what I'm saying? I mean, like,
yeah, it does.
It's weird. Like, I don't think he's. I don't know.
No, I mean, philosophically, you're saying, it makes like the guys that are close to the majors. If you value proximity to the majors, that he has that argument. I have been reading Baseball America for 25 years. I worked at Baseball America when I was in college as an intern. John Manuel and Will Lingo or Alan Matthews, Chris Klein, guys, some of the guys I respect the most that have come through there, just an organization I respect like crazy. It's just, this is such an odd ranking when like, when you consider like what how Baseball America has ranked players for 25 years, they're not in an organization that like typically values proximity to the majors in this kind of way. Obviously, I'm making way too big of a deal of it, like bringing in the history of the organization about a guy ranked 28th in the system. But it is weird. It is strange. Jared had a really awesome first half. Definitely took a step forward in some skills, but I think the odds that he makes even like a 2-WAR impact in the major leagues at this point is fairly low. So I think you can just be more creative and find some names that actually, have the potential to get to 3 or 4 wins if things break right.
Yeah, I haven't even like considered ranking Jared Young for the past couple of years, just because he's in my eyes just not a prospect.
Yeah.
And with all due respect to Jared Young, like I've heard nothing but great things about him as a person and as a grinder, as a hard worker, and obviously it's shown in the past couple of years, like what he's meant to the organization. But I just like he's not really a prospect. So let's go and move on to Darius Hill, who is that same situation, but just a little bit less in my
Yeah.
eyes.
Yep.
Ranked 29th. JY was 28. Darius Hill is 29 on Baseball America, unranked on MLB Pipeline. Yeah, I was being a little silly on Jared Young, but like I got to go with MLB Pipeline, right? On Darius Hill.
Yep.
I can't see a scenario where he's better. He should be higher ranked than some of these other guys that are unranked.
I think to a certain extent you have to look at like what do the Cubs think by their actions a little bit, right? And Darius Hill just has not been able to be a guy that's been prioritized to get everyday at bats in AAA this year. They're keeping him there. They're going to they're going to want him there next season too. A guy they really value, a guy that, takes some of the best at bats in the organization, knows who he is. But if the Cubs are kind of sending that message with how they're dividing playing time, Jonathan Perlaza being a guy that is prioritized to get at bats every day where he isn't, I think
That's a good point.
that tells you something. And I think, especially when you're at this point of a prospect list, you sort of have to like look for those clues of what the organization's telling you they value.
Yeah, that's actually, that's a 1-for-1, like right there. Jonathan Perlaza. You can obviously rank a lot of younger guys higher than Darius Hill here, but
Yep.
if you're looking at the Iowa roster and who's getting the playing time, Jonathan Perlaza is getting it. Darius Hill is not. There you go. It's right there. There it is, right there.
Yep.
I did skip over one. I skipped over a not ranked guy. On
Did you?
Pipeline. Yeah. So Pipeline has Christian Hernandez ranked 21st. And Baseball America does not have him ranked, which is kind of wild. Especially because if I remember right, like a lot of people were driving the Christian Hernandez hype train when he got signed. But if I remember right, like Baseball America was driving the bus, dude. Like they were about Christian Hernandez, and now he's off their list. So I'll lead off with this one. I'll side with the MLB Pipeline on this one pretty simply. I know that Christian is having a rough year this year. I know that he's still showing flashes of decency. The athleticism is still good. He just kind of needs to put it all together. But to not rank him in the top 30 is a little jarring to me.
Yeah, given that this is also sort of the list that dropped Kevin Alcantara from the top 100 and is, sort of stubbornly hanging on to him, not even be a top 10 prospect, which we're going to get into later. I guess it's telling a similar story. I think they really, really wanted guys to be good in early May, I guess, in their prospect lists. And, this reads of a list a little bit that was almost made on the back of a napkin on May 14th.
Yeah. Actually, this transitions well. We can go from Christian into the other shortstop on the Myrtle Beach roster, and that's Jefferson Rojas, who is ranked on both rankings. But he is ranked at Pipeline at number 11 and at Baseball America at number 25. I know where you stand. Go for it.
Yeah, listeners of this show will know Jefferson from our off-season chat about him when we drafted teams, me and the Gregs.
Yeah, that was pretty badass looking back on it, dude.
That was a fun one. And I guess, and honestly, the way that I would sort of weave that into what we're talking about is, that infatuation I had with Rojas before the season was in talking to Cubs, people in the Cubs organization. And I just know for a fact that if the Cubs organization has an internal list, or if they wrote, if they made one up, that Jefferson Rojas would certainly be in the top 20. I would say probably most likely be in the top 10. So I would definitely go with the Pipeline ranking here. I think it's just better sourced, a better sourced ranking with how the Cubs are feeling, and I think Jefferson's play on the field deserves to have that sort of validated a little bit. So yeah, I mean, he's probably 8th or 9th for me, but yeah, I think not having him in the top 20 is just not reflective of how this organization feels right now.
And not how I feel right now
Right.
watching him. Right.
Yeah.
Jefferson Rojas has put up pretty decent numbers for the Carolina League. He looks good, right? At the plate, he looks really good. He looks well beyond 18 years old. He is, I believe, I just tweeted this out literally right before we came on the show. I believe, and I threaded it. I did it on both things. That's how you know it's real. He is in terms of age compared to the level that they're playing at, he is the third best in the Cubs system, right? PCA is 5 years younger than the AAA average age. Alexander Canario's up there, and then Jefferson Rojas. He is almost 3 full years younger than the average hitter in the Carolina League. So he looks good, man. He just looks good. He looks the part. He's young. I don't know. In terms of where I'd have him, I don't know about top 10, but I definitely side with Pipeline. I would have him ranked higher. I would have him at near 11 as opposed to down near 25. So just a whole lot to like about Jefferson Rojas. I am honestly like we have about a month left in the Myrtle Beach season. He is on the short list of guys I'm most excited to continue to watch play throughout the rest of the season. There's a lot of guys, but he's up there.
The really impressive thing about him, and this is something that I think people could track, just not even needing to watch the games, just like read a box score every day. And like, he's a guy that just sort of finds a way to be productive in some way in every game. It's very rare that you're going to read a box score and it's going to be like 0 for 4, did not, nothing. Usually it's like a bad game for him is like 1 for 4, scored a run, or 1 for 3 with a sac fly, or 0 for 3 with a walk. Like, he's just one of those guys that sort of just figures out how to help his team in some way each day. And that consistency is pretty rare for someone his age. It's not something that, like, we were just talking about Christian Hernandez. Like, he's kind of the opposite side of it, where like he can be the most valuable player on the team for 2 or 3 days, and then you don't really hear from him the rest of the week. So I sort of appreciate that about Jefferson. I think it really fits with his game really well. Like, if you watch him play, it kind of, that same quality sort of jumps out. He can be a quiet contributor while also having the skills to like have a much louder potential future.
That's so valuable too. That is so valuable at the major. I mean, at every level, but like at the major league level, people love that. I just think that, I don't know if I mentioned it on this show or not. I might have, but when I interviewed James Triantos, which I still haven't put out an article for that, but life gets in the way sometimes. When I interviewed James Triantos over at in Peoria when South Bend played over there, I asked him, like I ask all players when they come on the show or I interview them in person or whatever. The last question I always ask guys is which one of your teammates should we be talking about more? And I barely got the question out of my mouth before James Trianto said Jefferson Rojas. He just said that he's just different. The way that he works, the way he grinds every single day in practice, even more than just games in practice, is like unreal. So
Awesome.
to get that kind of praise from a teammate and really like,
not a teammate,
not a teammate now, like
an
organizational teammate, but not even like James Triantos could look out onto the field and see all of his South Bend teammates. But for him to like mentally, like I asked that question and he went to immediately a guy that's not even there with him in South Bend is awesome. That's telling,
That actually means a lot to me. I mean, that's someone he hadn't seen in person for 3 months. So that means the impression that Jefferson made during camp was just massive.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's look. We've been going on the way of Pipeline has a guy ranked higher than Baseball America, so of course we're naturally going to kind of gravitate towards to the Pipeline because we like the guys ranked higher. Let's flip the script here a little bit. I don't know if we're going to choose differently, but we're going to flip the script. Pablo Aliendo is ranked 28th in MLB Pipeline's ranking, but he is ranked all the way up at 16 in Baseball America. Pablo is a guy that we have seen be very, very productive, especially early on in the year. Early in the year, he was one of the most productive bats in the entire system. The entire season long, he has run a strikeout rate that is north of 30%. I think for the season, sitting close to 33%, which is really, really high, and it hasn't really gotten better as the baseball became unpre-tacked. So what are your thoughts on Pablo Aliendo? Are you down with the higher ranking of him at 16, or would you rank him closer to number 28?
I'm pretty in the middle here, but I'm going to lean towards Baseball America just because, the power breakout this year combined with just the fact that he still is getting pretty darn good grades as a catcher. I mean, that's just a skill set that has so much value in baseball these days. Even if he can, if he can just become a guy that gets 200 plate appearances on a big league team, 250, and he pops you like, I don't know, 7 home runs in a season or something in a row like that. Like, that just has a lot of value to a baseball team. I mean, you can be on big league rosters for a decade with a skill set like he has, which I don't think is necessarily true with a lot of the guys that are sort of ranked at the back ends of top 30s like that. So I do need him to just strike out less in the next 6 weeks for him to be able to sort of sustain a top 20 ranking in my mind, and that's where I'm a little shaky. But I do think like he has gotten better every season, sort of like definitively and amazingly, and he's a worker. So I'm gonna stay optimistic with him and go with Baseball America.
Yeah, I think I will also side with Baseball America and go the higher route. But you're right. This one is I thread the needle a little bit. I think that I've talked about it before that ranking catching prospects are really hard because the difference between a guy that doesn't ever reach the majors and a guy that is like could even potentially start on a team at the major league level is so razor thin because like there aren't those like while you have superstar outfielders, there's very few like there aren't superstar catchers, right? There's really good catchers, but those really good catchers aren't superstar players. And so like that like the level from a starting catcher at the major leagues to a backup catcher at the major leagues to a guy who is spends most of his time in AAA is like so small. So he's got to continue to do the little things while the way they hit is not the same. The path that he's taking reminds me a lot of Miguel Amaya. Obviously, he's up to Double A quick, like in a different way than Miggy was, but he kind of popped onto the radars at a really young age. He's consistently way younger than average, even as a catcher at the levels he's at. Pitchers seem to love throwing to him and he's just consistently getting better and better every single year. Those are all qualities that Miggy had, and still has now. So that's I think that like familiarity with what we're seeing from Miguel Amaya over the past like this season is probably what's hyping up this. Like I'd rather rank him at 16 than 28, but like I said, it's so close, dude. This one's so hard.
And it shows just how like easy it is to move a guy from 16 to 28 in the system. Like those guys are really close. I think you can make an argument for basically like 13 in the system down to 27 as being pretty interchangeable at this moment. So it's hard to get worked up in this area.
For sure. All right, let's move on to we have 2 more guys that are at least 10 spots different from list to list. The first is Michael Arias, who is ranked 12th at Pipeline and down at 22 for Baseball America. Are you higher or lower on Michael Arias here?
I'm going to go with the Baseball America lower ranking at the 22 ranking. Arias was a guy that, I remember writing about him early in the season, just watching his changeup in one of those Pelican starts and being like, this is new, like that this is a plus to even better pitch, and had such an awesome stint with Myrtle Beach, is now up in South Bend, and he's struggling a little bit. He is, I would say, high A hitters are making him come to the zone more, and he's either not and walking more guys, or he's getting hit a little bit when he's in the zone. And so I think what happened a little bit was during that hot stretch, the word just got out like, hey, have you seen this guy with the really good raw stuff? And it just the prospect ranking got boosted probably a little far for I think where it's probably deserved. I think when you just look at the context of what other guys are doing, that like their stuff might be a tick worse, but it's like half grade worse in places. I don't know. I think it just went a little too far, and I think he's one of those guys that it'll be best to look back at the end of the season, see the full scope of work, kind of get the full context for the improvements he made, and then be able to rank him. So I imagine for me, he would be down in sort of the 18-20 range.
Yeah, this is actually one of the more easy ones for me. Do I rank Michael Arias higher than I rank Daniel Palencia and Luke Little? And the answer is no for me. Which is why I'll side with the lower ranking, which is the Baseball America ranking. I still view, I think until proven otherwise, I think Michael Arias has to be viewed as a reliever. I know he'll continue to start games, all that good stuff, and they should try to get him to being a starter for as long as they possibly can. We've talked about this before, like just continue to try to get him to that starter status, and I'm sure he'll be added to the 40-man roster this offseason with the hope that they can get him to be a starting pitcher long term. But I until proven that he can do that, I'm viewing him as a reliever, and I don't view him as being better necessarily than Luke Little and Daniel Palencia. So I've got to side with the 22 ranking, not the 12 ranking.
Yep.
The other guy is Jackson Wiggins, new draft pick Jackson Wiggins, who is ranked according to Pipeline down at 25, but all the way up at 15 for Baseball America. This is again one of the harder ones because we haven't seen him play pro baseball. Like we didn't basically. I mean, I think you talked about it on the Discord today, how it's like it's all based on what they saw from fall ball from Jackson Wiggins this past year. So it's like this is extremely hard, which makes me err on the side of MLB Pipeline, which is the lower ranking because it's like I don't know what this guy is. Like, I hope like hell he's the 15th ranked prospect in the system. That'd be terrific. That'd be awesome. But I just don't know, man. Like, I'm not willing to say 15th best prospect in the system. That's scary. That's good.
Yeah, it's always interesting when a guy gets picked that he gets picked a little higher than the draft rankings had him, and then the organization sort of always makes a point to counterbalance it and say like, hey, no, we have this guy way higher, and they give you all the reasons, and then you get really excited, right? You're like, man, they actually had him as a first round talent, even though the draft rankings had him more as like a fourth or fifth round talent. Like, what a steal the Cubs got. And it can all get just a little muddled, I think, in terms of what's actually going on with the player. And what's going on with the player is like a guy that had Tommy John surgery that, if we know how the Cubs treat guys like conservatively, probably will not make his full season debut until maybe late May next season. He'll probably get the chance to go through a full round of extended spring training coming off that injury. So it would be hard for me to rank him in the teens, which is separating him from a guy like Naz Moulay, who also a guy going through Tommy John, who has incredible raw stuff. Like, I'd like him more in that sort of grouping in the 20s. So I would go with Pipeline's 25 ranking more than I would go with Baseball America's 15.
Dude, isn't it wild that the Cubs got 4 first-round picks this year?
Right.
I mean, like you can spin it however you want, right? Like
exactly
how they got Matt Shaw, the first-round pick. They got Jackson Wiggins, who has first-round.
Would have been a first-round pick if he didn't get injured.
They got Josh Rivera. If he was a year younger, he would have been a first-round pick. They got Will Sanders, who had first-round stuff as well. It's like that. We got 4 first-round, which I mean. Fine, if you want to spin it that way, like I'll listen, man. That's fun. That makes it fun, but it's like it doesn't always work that way.
Yep, there's 30 fan bases that are feeling that way.
Exactly. All right, let's go to Matt Mervis. Matt Mervis is ranked 13 according to MLB Pipeline, and he's all the way up at 5 on Baseball America. Where are you at? Where are you at on Matt Mervis here?
I gotta say my brain's breaking a little bit because I kind of just stopped ranking him or even like thinking about him in that
Yeah.
context at a
Yeah.
certain point. So I'm like having to think about where Matt Mervis is in relation to like Jackson Ferris is the most bizarre, experiment to me.
Dude,
So
I've said for so like back in the day, I used to rank pitchers and hitters separately.
yeah,
Literally when I published, like I not even internally, I would publish two different ones because like there's so many different things going on with comparing these guys that the least I could do was at least separate out the pitchers from the hitters. At
yeah.
least I was like ranking like Hayden Wesneski against Jackson Ferris, not Matt Mervis against Jackson Ferris, But yeah, dude, I don't know. So you feel passionately one way or the other, 5 or 13?
You know what I want to do? I want to bring Moises Ballesteros into this conversation
Okay.
too,
Yep.
because they're literally on opposite sides. Pipeline has Ballesteros at 7 and Mervis at 13. Baseball America has Mervis at 5 and Ballesteros at 12. Um,
Yeah.
I just want to like completely hedge and say I would have both guys in the middle of those two rankings. And I think it's silly to have like a large separation between them. So I'm on team neither.
Yeah, actually, okay. So if you're pulling Ballesteros into there, I'll pull McGeary in as well.
Okay.
Different, but might as well group them all, right?
Yeah.
Um, Pipeline has McGeary at 18, and Baseball America has McGeary down at
26.
26. Okay, so it's just like I don't see how you can be. I don't know. I think that there's no rhyme or reason for these, dude. I'm so
Mhm.
confused. I'm so confused. I think that yeah, Mo Baller seems like he's too high on like Pipeline. I think the 7 might be a little too high, and they were even talking. Zumac and I talked last week about how Callis was kind of mentioning Ballesteros in that grouping of like potentially close to top 100 status. Um, I just don't really see that. Like I love Moises Ballesteros. I think that if we're like, and I love that he's super young for his. I was talking about the guys that were super young. He is that guy for sure. Killing the ball. I love his swing. I love his hit tool. Like I love what Ballesteros is. But it's like I was never really that close on ranking Matt Mervis top 100. I'm nowhere near ranking Hayden McGeary top 100. So like, what? How can I really argue Ballesteros as top 100? You know.
Sure. Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Those are three of the more interesting players to rank in the system, and so yeah, it's hard. I don't know. This is one I think maybe we'll have to revisit an off-season episode. Is like the first base position of the future, and talk through those three guys a little more. That could be its own episode.
I was gonna say we could go for an hour about how to rank first base prospects because that's impossible.
And
Uh,
we'll just only talk about Felix Stevens the whole time.
yeah, exactly. All right, let's go to Kevin Alcantara. Kevin Alcantara is one of the more bizarre Baseball America rankings that I've ever seen. They have him way down at 11, and Pipeline has him at 4. I side with Pipeline. I have Kevin Alcantara as I know you're high on Owen Casey, but I have Kevin Alcantara as my third ranked prospect in the Cubs system. I side with Pipeline. I don't really see how you could have him ranked 11th. Honestly, I don't get it.
I think the only possible explanation here is, it's a pretty sourced. I know that these two companies do their homework in terms of reporting and talking to people. My guess would be that Baseball America just got a really bad report from a scout on Alcantara that really is sort of just sitting at the top of the minds of the people behind the ranking. And I know from personal experience that can really that can really make it tough to do a ranking when the last person you talk to, for instance, has a really strong opinion that goes against yours. It can fight against you, and it can I don't know, fight against common sense a little bit at times too. And I think that's what's happening here. It's just, I don't know. It's an incorrect ranking. Like this is a subjective business that we're talking about, but like objectively, this is a wrong rank,
Yeah,
incorrect ranking.
yeah. Let's go down the list quite a bit here for both. Caleb Killian is ranked 24th on Pipeline and ranked 17th on Baseball America. Are you higher or lower on Caleb Killian? Because I would take the lower.
Yeah, I think I would probably take lower too. There's been some exciting stuff this summer. I wrote about it recently at Bleacher Nation, back up to 99 miles per hour at times. But, I think one of those guys where the sum is always a little lower than the parts would otherwise suggest. And so, yeah, I think he's going to be someone that's going to really have to prove it to me with like 5 really loud big league outings for me to start to really change my mind again. So I would stay lower there.
Yeah, I think that I dig that the stuff is playing up a little bit. I like that. I love the every outing seeing, oh, he's up to 97. Oh, he's up to 98. Oh, he's up to 99. Until it's generating whiffs, he could be throwing 108. Honestly, like it's just I need to see I need to see results more than just like, hey, he went 5 innings of 2-run ball in Iowa, So I'll take the lower on that one. Let's go to Luke Little, who I mentioned earlier. Luke Little is ranked 26th on MLB Pipeline, and he is ranked up at 19 on Baseball America. So Baseball America has him higher, Pipeline has him lower. Where are you at?
I am Team Baseball America here. I think Luke, especially lately, Luke's looked really good in his last couple AAA outings. A guy that I think is actually starting to like really knock on the big league door here. I think the Cubs, I think he's closing in on locking up a 40-man spot this winter, protecting him from the Rule 5 draft. And so when a team feels like he's locked up that place, then there's really no reason not to promote him if you need him. It's one of those tricky situations where if they're really in the like divisional race in September, then starting a guy out in the majors for the first time and sort of dealing with the nerves that come with that might not be in the cards. So it's probably still a long shot that he gets promoted, but it is a team that needs a lefty reliever. It is a guy who I think is looking more and more comfortable in that role. I think if he can just take sort of the worst 25% of what he's doing and make that like a little better, you know what I'm saying? Then he's like big league all the way and like would be a really helpful guy in September with the team. It's just like there's like, I don't know, if he's throwing 25 pitches in an outing, there's 6 that are like 94.7 mile per hour fastballs that miss the zone by 7 inches. Like, let's clean that up. Let's stay at 96, 97 every pitch and at least throw it close enough that a batter's going to think about it.
I'll be quick on mine. I had Luke Little ranked above Daniel Palencia in my update this at midseason. I just think there's a little bit more room for error in Luke Little than Daniel Palencia, and so that's why I'm kind of siding with him.
Yeah.
And so I'll go with the higher ranking of Luke Little. But this is a perfect opportunity here, real quick, just a name for a weekly update of who will be the lefty called up next to the major leagues in the bullpen.
It will be they will not call up another lefty the rest of the season.
Is that actually what you think, or are you just saying that?
No, that's what I think.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's so weird now with September being only 28 guys, and now we're going to get Brad Boxberger back, probably eating one of those 2 spots. So, I think it's going to take an injury. I think Shane Green is going to get called up this week, probably. So that's another right-handed reliever. I don't see it. I mean,
all right, let me try to pull an
Brandon
answer.
Hughes is running out of time.
I was gonna say, let me try to pull an answer out of you then. Mark Leiter Jr. goes down, unfortunately. Who is it? Nobody. I mean, he's your lefty. Leiter's your lefty out of the bench.
Is. It's Luke Little if it's anybody.
Okay,
it's actually probably a free agent.
It's I think it might be Brendan Little more than more than Luke Little.
Sure.
Luke Little might not even be the highest likelihood Little of getting called up. So that's good. All right, we got just two more guys here, and their names that listeners are very, very familiar with. First guy is Owen Casey, who we already talked about a little bit, so we don't have to go into much detail here. Pipeline has him 3rd overall, and Baseball America has him 9th overall. The fact that Baseball America has Owen Casey 9 and Kevin Alcantara 11, and most people are arguing which guy should be ranked 3rd, it kind of cracks me up a little bit. So I'm assuming you're going. I know you're going the Pipeline route.
Yeah, Owen Casey's way closer to 2nd than he is 6th in the system. 9th is
wild.
I can't see it.
Yeah. All right. Last guy we got here. Last guy is our guy, Cole Franklin.
Yes, let's talk about this one.
He is ranked 29 over at Pipeline, and he's ranked 24 at Baseball America. So this is obviously the smallest differential between the two rankings. So I guess that it's the difference between 24 and 29 is so slim.
Yeah.
But for sake of the podcast, where do you stand? Are you higher or lower on Cole?
Yeah, the incorrect list in this case is both of them. Cole is a top 20 prospect for me. I'm pretty sure he's a top 15 prospect for me. I don't know, and I find that I'm well higher on him than almost anyone else I come across. Maybe with the exception of you, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and you got the right people on the show for this conversation.
Exactly, and I just don't really see what other people are seeing. I mean, I know there are some struggles every once in a while, and I know that the results have never been super loud, and maybe that's what a player needs to get that sort of top 15 status is. They need to put together 3 outings in a row that are 10 strikeouts or something. But look at Cole's last 6 outings this summer, and they've been freaking awesome. I think he's really getting comfortable with the slider. He's run a reverse platoon split this year, better against lefties, struggled against righties. I think he's getting more comfortable against righties. He's a guy that just if he can command his fastball just a little bit better, then I wouldn't see a reason why he shouldn't be top 15. So yeah, I think they're both wrong.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll take whichever the higher one was. Baseball America. The last 6 starts that you mentioned, he has a 2.03 ERA. Opponents hitting sub 200 off of him, slugging only 351 off of him. Like I don't know. He's doing really 26 and 2/3 innings. He has 34 strikeouts, 13 walks. Like he's been certifiably good over the last 6 outings. And that's what we wanted. That was exactly what we wanted to see from him this year. Like it was the stuff was there last year. He just couldn't quite he just wasn't putting it together. The results were not. Now the results are there. Like we've seen the stuff. We've seen the results now. Like what it's here. Like he's here. Like we need more consistency, obviously, but maybe that's just the 3rd step, right? The 3rd step is next year is consistency.
And we've talked about that baseball change as it relates to hitters a ton, but he's a changeup pitcher. And it's not a huge surprise that the results have been way better since he's been able to probably kill spin on his changeup a lot better than I would imagine he was able to with the tacky ball.
Good point. And that matches up pretty well with those 6 starts. So
yep.
You'd love to see that. All right, man. That's all we got. You got it. Am I missing anything? Anything else you wanted to hit on with these lists? We've said the words MLB Pipeline and Baseball America about 20 million times this episode.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully everyone takes the fact that we're criticizing a list here and there as don't get it confused that we don't respect this stuff. Like the fact that we're spending an entire episode on their rankings tells you that they matter to us. Jim Callis is the best all time in this industry. Baseball America is why this industry is an industry. So please don't take anything out of context in terms of what we think about these organizations. Utmost respect.
Yeah, and I think that what it comes down to is exactly what you said, right? If we're spending an entire episode breaking down these 2 lists, they've earned that respect from us that they get to be discussed for a full hour and 4 minutes. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's a good point. All right, dude. You want to go ahead and plug yourself? Anything you're working on over there at Bleacher Nation?
Let's see. What am I working on? I mean, we're getting close enough to the end of the season that I want to start like doing some research on specific guys to profile for the end of the year. You know, the guy who's going to be my player of the year, the pitcher of the year, try to write up some profiles. So I'm excited. I think I know who I'm going to pick in those cases, and it'll be nice to start to dig in and talk to some coaches and and the players themselves about the year they had.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, you can. What am I working on? I'm nothing really writing on right now. Although we're recording this on Monday night, on Thursday night, I'll be hopping on this. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, I will be back on this YouTube feed on Thursday night with friend of the show, fellow co-host of this show for one episode, Brendan Miller, and I will be on this YouTube page. We're gonna be just taking a big old Q&A session, live question and answer.
Nice.
On prospects, on MLB action. It's why we got both of us. We can kind of have both sides of things covered. Come over, hang out with us. We'll be live on the North Side Bound YouTube page at 8:00 Central Time on Thursday night. So come check us out. That'll be fun. You can drop the questions in there. If you have questions that you want us to cover in advance, tweet at us. You can find me at Out of the Vines. You can find him, I think, Brendan_Cubs. So tweet at us. You can find Bryan on Twitter at Cub Prospects. You can find us talking over on the 1060 West Discord page over there, talking prospects, talking MLB action, all that good stuff. You can find me on Threads as well, on Cubs on Deck, on Instagram, Cubs on Deck, the YouTube feed, like I said. Subscribe if you could. Leave a rating, leave a review, all that good stuff. We really appreciate it. And in the meantime, we will be back in your ears in one short week. Thanks, guys.
Go Cubs.